short weeks away, and Run Pure Sports is gearing up for the season with the best deal in DFS.
For a limited time only, we are offering new members a 15% discount for the life of their subscription, including SaberSim subs. Simply use the promo code NFL15 when subscribing to take advantage of this great deal before our prices go up.
And at RPS, we don't just give you access to one sport. When you subscribe to our premium service, we give you access to all of our content, including NFL, NBA, MLB, PGA, and so much more.
And we're not going to charge extra for access to our preseason content either. Our memberships include all of our content, including the NFL preseason. The best DFS players in the industry give you access to their core plays and slate strategies for every sport and for every slate. Simplify your lineup building process by plugging in picks directly from the top players in the world. Watch our premium live streams to gain a huge edge on the competition. Our guys are live up to lock for the biggest slates, walking you through their last-minute decisions, analyzing breaking news and injury alerts for the major sports.
Again, for a limited time only, you can access our industry-leading DFS content for 15% off our already low price. SaberSim packages are included, so sign up today using the promo code NFL15 for 15% off your subscription for life and start building winning lineups today.
Is up, Joe Bronies, JJ back here with Mangone and the Bruiser, aka Bruce, talking a little college football action for Saturday, September 10th. We'll talk the main slate in DraftKings DFS, the 14 gamer, the early one, begins in about 2 hours. I'll also talk on some bets that I'm on, and maybe the panel will talk on some bets we're on. Just a quick shout to Big T taking home a cool and smooth 500K. Some cool kids call this $500,000. But awesome feeling for him and always great to see. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy, so you love to see that. But guys, last week in the CFB streets, how'd we do? I mean, as you guys probably saw, I kind of really ran pure on the FanDuel end. I didn't even play DraftKings last week because I didn't like the pricing. And this week, I actually like the pricing even less. But I don't like the action on FanDuel, so I did dabble on DraftKings. Bruce, Mangone, we'll start with you last week. Any highs, any lows? And first of all, you absolutely smashed your props in NFL on Thursday. I mean, you're kind of a mild guy, a little modest, if you will. What a 5-0 on props for Thursday, which isn't easy to start the season. You love to see it.
Yeah, we start the year off right there, Dunkel. I've been doing free Twitter bets, right? We got the free Twitter bet that we got home, never a doubt on Devin Singletary. So that was awesome to see on the under there. And also, we did good in the college streets last week, 2-0 on the free Twitter bets. Haven't put out what I'm doing yet. Maybe we'll talk it through and I'll find something here with you guys. It's a little better. I have some ideas of what I'm going to put down there, but stay tuned for that. And we got some college winners coming for you guys. I mean, it's going to be a fun slate. I think it's a really good MME slate. I love to play one lineup more than anyone. If there's anyone that wants to sit down and hand build one team, just like a man, it's me. I love doing that, but I don't think it's going to be the slate for me to do that. Just so many options you can go to, so many mispriced guys, and it's a great slate DFS wise. So can't wait to break it down with you guys.
Yeah, and Bruce, pound for pound, the most knowledgeable college football guy I know. What was your take on last week with the pricing all around and how the results ended up panning out? Seemed like a lot of chalk didn't get there last week. As for this week, this DraftKings pricing is absolutely abysmal. I know Mangone mentioned it'll be a fun slate. It will be because there's just going to be some rocket ship scores with this pricing. Bruce, what's your take on how last week panned out and maybe any overreactions or anything you're looking forward to this week? And then maybe talk briefly on a bit of the pricing that we're seeing this week in DraftKings.
Yeah, last week was solid. Just kind of got close to break even, but a few of my bets got there, so it helped out a little bit. This week is the pricing is pretty terrible, especially on FanDuel. I mean, the USC pricing over there, you can get whatever you want if you throw some of those guys in there. DraftKings, there's just so many good plays, quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers. It's kind of tough to just pick one. So yeah, MME strategy this week is tons of fun.
Yeah, and before we go into the show, man, I'm going to get your take on a question. Slates like this, where because this isn't going to happen every week. I mean, they're going to get this pricing correct, but we do see this occasionally early on in sports or early on in new seasons of sports where the pricing is just a shit show. How do you approach a slate when instead of, like, for instance, let's I mean, obviously we'll talk on the slate, but take a guy like Hendon Hooker or even a guy like Sam Hartman. Why? I mean, Hartman's price is ridiculous. How do you approach a slate like this where there's just so many different options of cheap guys? Like, do you just load up on a guy that you're really heavy on and just hope the other guys all don't outscore them or him? Or do you just take a really contrarian approach and you just try to get a little, your tentacles in a little bit of everything? How do you walk into a slate like this where you can literally build any lineup you want today without really struggling?
Yeah, so I think actually we can look at last week's lineup real quick, that one, and like shout out to Whistles Go Woo. He's done a show with us. He shipped it. And these are just like the things that he did on the slate. And I know like this slate's not the same as last, but you could kind of do whatever you want on that last slate. And the winner still had a game stack, right? It was Clayton Tune with Dell, Cephas, and Harris. And the team overall has only 3 guys in the single digits. It's Cephas, who's at 6.7%. It has Noel out of nowhere at 4%, which is pretty interesting. And not one of those running backs I think that was really that considered. And then Cowing at 6.9, who is one of those like low end receivers. So when I kind of build out my teams, I'm going to definitely like make sure to be doing a game stack. It also had Hemby, who was 12% owned, that leveraged that entire like really good situation with the Maryland pass catcher. So you're going to look for some leverage spots, which we'll find ways to talk about it when we talk about some popular options. So we'll think about that. We'll definitely play some game stacks. And then I'm going to make sure to get some lower owned guys in there, but I'm also going to play the good chalk that's there, right? Like Dell, 32%. That's good chalk. Edwards, 24%. We talked about it last week. He was a really great play. Good one. Tune at 20%. He was fine. So I'm not just going to fade chalk plays, right? Like, let's say I decide to play Chase Brown and I like Michael Mayer. Now, one thing that you can do, this would instantly make you different. I'm not saying it's the strategy you should do, but let's say you're playing 20 teams, you jump into the opto, you make a group, and that group is no Michael Mayer and no Chase Brown on the same team. That's instantly going to make your teams different. Now, obviously, if you do that, you might have like 50% Brown, or maybe it's like 70% Brown and 30% Mayer. You might be underweight on one and overweight on another, but your actual Brown and Mayer teams are going to already be unique in those ways. So those are kind of like simple strategies. We can obviously go even deeper and deeper into this, but we got an MMA show coming up. We got a lot of games to talk about, so I don't want to get even deeper into it in the Galaxy Brain. So overall, that's kind of like some of the ways that you can go and do that. So we'll obviously talk about it and discuss all the different routes you can go, but it's a good slate. And listen, make sure you're not just jamming in all the 20% guys, right? Have some lower owned guys. There's some great receivers that are not going to get ownership here on this slate.
Yeah, I think as we talk through the slate, we're going to have spots where we think there's going to be a lot of ownership. And it was like last week, right, where there was a lot of different ways you could have went. And for college football, I'll be honest, Mangone, I don't really consider 20% on decently large slates chalk. Like, I'll give you an example. Cunningham in the all day on FanDuel, I think he was 70% owned from Louisville. But like, I mean, that's what I mean. Like, so like there are some guys that are just going to be consistently high owned. I mean, the wide receiver, what was his name? From Oklahoma. Was it Mims? Not Mims.
Mims is last year's. Are you talking about someone Brown maybe?
Yeah, I forgot his name from Oklahoma, but he was like 40% owned in the all day on FanDuel. So
yeah,
I think
the one thing I would call out, Dunkel, that I think is a little different is like, I think as the season goes on, you're going to get some of those dustier games on the slate, and then you'll have them. I just think early in the season, you kind of get some like really late games. Then once you get a bunch of like the division rival games always, that's when you start to see games that you're like, okay, like this game's fine, but like, do I love it? Right? Like, because we have teams that are just like out of division right now, that's why you see it. And then you see ownership condense a little bit more. So that's just one more thing to call out.
Yeah, agreed. But to your guys' point, it does make the slates fun. So let's dive right into it, right? So Arkansas, South Carolina, looking at implied team totals here, Arkansas 32.25, South Carolina 22.75. Decent number. I think you're going to see a lot of the totals in this area, this 55-ish area for a lot of these games. Obviously, there's a few that are going to surpass and a few that are going to be less, but it's going to be the common theme for a lot of these spreads. I look here initially, again, like a guy like KJ Jefferson, the dude's 7,400. Like, why? it's like very frustrating. I don't understand why they would have priced these guys in this area. But again, there's so many different options, so many different prices that Jefferson might be a guy that gets looked past potentially. At his price, though, in cash, you would think that's a pretty solid option. Bruce, I'll start with you. How are you approaching this game? And is there anything you like? Obviously, it's a huge slate here. Anything you like here? Anything you're going to be leveraging here in terms of players?
Yeah, I don't like it too much from this game. Arkansas, I think should roll here, especially on the ground. Rocket Sanders. It depends if Dominique Johnson's back, but if he's still out, Rocket Sanders could smash. He got close to 80% of the snaps last week, and South Carolina's rush defense is just really bad. So he could have a big game. Trey Knox also got 7 targets last week, scored a couple touchdowns as well. He looks really good. I always like Hazelwood and Landers too. So yeah, I guess a few of those guys are okay, but I won't have too much of this game except in like GPPs or something if I make a Arkansas stack or something. But that's it.
Cool. Mangone, how are you rolling in this game? Jefferson going to see ownership for you? And another question, maybe this will be after, but what do you think Jefferson's ownership comes in at today, Mangone?
Yeah, I'm just kind of like liking Jefferson. Like he's good. The problem is like, people want to put my quarterbacks, right? I want to like game stack it up, and like I just don't know how I'm getting to that here. I mean, I guess yes, you could do a game stack, right? You could put Jefferson in there with Rattler. I don't think it's the craziest thing. Like, if this game was a shootout, like I wouldn't just say like, okay, that was absolutely nuts that it happened. I think it has the ability to, but it's really just like Jefferson or Sanders for me, or bust. That's kind of really the route that I'm taking. And like, I don't know, like here's another former Oklahoma receiver, JJ Hazelwood, right? Couldn't Hazelwood at 6.4K? The dude's not going to get any ownership. Couldn't he have like a massive game out of nowhere? Yes, we talk about SEC's the best defense in college football. We see SEC games shoot out all the time, right? I'm not that worried about that. So I think this game could interact really well. I like to have games that are going to be close enough, spreads. Normally, like if it's like, for instance, like Alabama, Texas, I worry about that one staying close. We'll obviously get to that one, but I think this is a game that it could stay close and interact pretty well. And if it does, like a stack of like Jefferson, Sanders with Hazelwood, I mean, it's not the worst route, and you can go Rattler on the other side. There's way better spots though on this slate. So I think I'm just going to kind of maybe just look at Jefferson as like a one-off here and there, and then just kind of maybe Sanders as an option between all those running backs at the top, which like, I don't want to obviously talk about all the running backs at once, but one thing just to call out with the running backs today is like Chase Brown is going to clearly be the chalk, great play. But when you look at all these other guys up top, right? I think between Gibbs, Sanders, Vaughn, maybe I don't know if Robinson gets as much ownership, I think, but like Braylon Allen and like a chain. So it's a chain, Allen, Vaughn, and Sanders. I think a lot of those guys eat into each other's ownership at like this range where it's between like 15 and 20%, kind of like you said, Dunkel. We don't care that much about the 20%, but they're all going to cut into each other because they're all really good plays. That's kind of what I wrote up on my single entry 3 max stuff. So if you want to kind of check that out on the premium side, I got a breakdown of that with some more stuff over there.
Love it. So let's move on. So ultimately Jefferson, maybe a running back or two on the Arkansas side, but completely fading the other end. All right. So second game up, Kansas State, Mizzou. Looking at implied totals here, 31.75 for Kansas State and 24.25 on the Mizzou end. Bruce, I'll start with you here. What, obviously another, game that's likely not going to see a crazy amount of ownership. Vaughn is decently priced, to be honest, where you can play him and not worry about it much. But is there anybody else or anybody in this game that you like targeting for this slate?
Well, I don't like this game too much just because Kansas State likes to slow it down. You could play Deuce Vaughn, of course. And Adrian Martinez can run a couple in as well and can get over that 100-yard mark. But yeah, Mizzou wants to go fast. KSU wants to slow it down. So you could get on some Mizzou stacks just in case. Kansas State is scoring quickly with the Deuce long runs and they have to play catch up. I don't hate Burden at wide receiver. He's cheap enough where you could fit him in. 5,900. But yeah, mostly staying away from this game. Other than Deuce, I have him in my main lineup at the moment. But yeah, it's not a great game for me. Brady Cook did look good last week, but he does run a little bit, so I guess there is some upside there. But yeah, mainly staying away. Other than Deuce.
Yeah, I do like myself some Brady Cook. At that price, though, with the way the slate is, like, to me, this would be, again, if DraftKings priced this slate correctly, I'm sure, Bruce, you'd feel a lot better about playing Cook at 5,800. But yeah, this slate's just been a mess with the way the QBs are priced. Mangone, kind of agree with Bruce in some ways, disagree with him in any ways, or anything you like in this game?
Yeah, I like Burden a lot in this spot. He's just like super talented, right? So like, he's taking some Wildcat snaps too. Like, I don't mind pairing him up in Deuce Vaughn. I'm not saying it's a necessity. Like, you can easily keep them away from each other, but I think that those are kind of the two guys I'm looking at. It's Burden, it's Deuce. Keeping it really simple. We know that the one thing about Deuce Vaughn that's amazing is the PPR upside that he can have can be absolutely tremendous. And the one thing encouraging is, yes, Kansas State, they're a team that they like to play super slow, Bruce, but Missouri, they're 14th in pace, right? So if there is a matchup that could play favorable to them, this could be the one. So definitely on some Deuce Vaughn today.
Love it. Let's move on to this next game. So Wake and Vandy, this will be an interesting game because there is just pricing. I'm befuddled, to say the least, on some of this pricing for this game. And because of it, you're going to have to compete with a high amount of ownership. So you're either going to take some stands on this game, which would kind of be crazy to think you would, or, you're just going to have to be as overweight as you possibly can be for your own psyche. Mangone, I'll start with you for this game. To me, some of these plays look relatively obvious. Some of them you can be a little different with. How are you approaching this game and for whatever reason, the way they price Sam Hartman?
Yeah, I'll talk about that, but our boy Uncle T has a message for you in the chat, JJ. I wasn't going to say it, but, Uncle T is out there just, throwing you under a bus. So just figured I'd let you check that message out. And while I do that, let me sit here and talk about Wake and Vandy, which I love this game. 65.5 total, massive game. Sam Hartman's going to be back. That's one thing that I'm really excited about. We know he was dealing with that injury. The guy that I'm looking to go to a lot is A.T. Perry. A.T. Perry and him obviously have had a connection. You also had Morin, who was there last year, who got a bunch of work. I think a stack of those guys is not bad. And then a run back with Mangone or Shepard. I'm kind of curious to get Bruce's take on which one he prefers. I believe he's going to say he prefers Shepard more. Also, do you think you can go to Mike Wright as well as a nice cheap option? He's only 5,400. The problem is this is going to be his biggest test. So I am slightly concerned of the matchup, and not just the matchup at 5,400 for Wright. I'm a little concerned about the opportunity cost at the position because there's a lot of good quarterbacks today. We haven't talked about Toon. We haven't talked about Armstrong. We haven't talked about Hooker. There's so many good options, and I'm sure I've already missed some that I'm not thinking about right now. So the point I'm getting at is there could be some opportunity cost when it comes to playing a 5,400 Mike Wright, or he can give you maybe this different construction that gets you this spend up receiver that just breaks the slate for 40 DK points. Kind of like Cowing last week at 7% owned. That just seemed like one of those guys that he wasn't 1% where you had to have the complete nuts, but when a guy's at 7% and he's one of the best plays in the slate, he normally ends up on the winner because there's just enough lineups that have that set up. So overall, this is a game stack. I think it's one that probably my favorite game stack on the slate. Just kind of have to figure out the best way to construct it still.
So, and thank you for that, Mango. But a quick apology is in order for our guy, Kurt. I did not have the Zoom up. Had no idea when he slid in with his little Irish hello. Also, you guys on YouTube are getting a cutoff version of him. Kurt's barely wearing a shirt right now, which is actually which is actually pretty awesome. Again, you guys aren't seeing it more on the YouTube because it's cut off for the children watching.
Hey,
but
Kurt, did you just come back from the gym?
I just walked in the door. I would never wear a cutoff on a show, but I just walked in the door. So
I think cutoff should be always the Kurt look. I think it should start defining you. That and the
can I get an autograph cutoff sent to me in the mail from Kurt? That's what I want. I want to wear it at the gym.
I'm loving getting gassed up because I'm doing this leg circuit. So I've done legs the past 3 days. So my upper body's looking weak. So I appreciate it, guys. You make me feel a lot better about it.
Yeah, between that and the water jug that's filled with just protein powder, I think we're all looking forward to it. But Kurt, how'd you do last week? And what are you looking forward to most with this week? And then we'll just continue on with the slate.
last week I was way overweight on the UNC running back, and I took a lot of zeros, and I still only lost like 30%. So like between those two things, I was really shocked at myself, and I faded some big guys that went off. So all in all, pretty decent for what I've expected. So I'm excited for this week. I feel like I'm a lot more in tune with this slate as opposed to last week. We got a little bit more data on these teams. I'm sure Bruce loves that. I know I do. I'm really excited for this one, a lot more than last week.
Love it. And Bruce, we'll slide right back to you with this game. Obviously figures to be relatively popular. I know Mangone mentioned Perry, but I figure Perry's gonna be pretty popular as well. But to the point, he's gonna be less owned than Hartman. What's your take on how you're approaching this game from top to bottom and in relation to the entire slate?
Yeah, I think it's an exciting game for sure. I will be overweight on these Wake wide receivers. I do like Perry and Green. I kind of like Green a little bit more. I think his ownership is going to be a little bit lower. I think he's the better wide receiver here, but especially on FanDuel, he's 5,500. Like, come on. AT Perry's 9,200 over there. And yeah, I love those two wide receivers. I hate playing Wake Forest running backs just because sometimes they'll go three deep, sometimes two. Yeah, that's tough to win a slate with when they're rotating that many backs in and out. I do like the Michigan transfer. What's his name? Christian Turner, a little bit more than Justice Ellison. So I guess if you're going to play one, play him. He looked explosive last week. On the Vandy side, Shepard has 4 touchdowns in 2 games this year. Has been on the field for 100% of the snaps. So you love to see that in a, if you're game stacking it there. So I do like him. There was a freshman wide receiver, Jaden McGowan for Vandy. He probably will go under-owned. I know me and Mangone got him low owned on a Hawaii slate that first week. And we kind of talked through which receivers we liked, and he was one of them. He's been on the field for 87% of the snaps as well, and scored a long touchdown last week. So he should go under-owned.
Bruce, if I had to ask McGowan or Shepard, which one would it be? Like,
Shepard,
I think that's
for
like
sure.
a tough decision that I'm thinking through.
Yeah, Shepard for sure. McGowan's going to be like 2% owned, 3% owned or something. Shepard too. I mean, he's going to go under-owned just because of the price. But yeah, if game stacking, I love Shepard in this spot.
Plus, I mean, it's 500 more, but you're getting double-digit target upside. That's a big difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's easily their best receiver. So
yeah. I think that's like the game stack I like the most for sure. So I'm pretty excited to fire that one off today.
And let's not forget, like I didn't talk on the team totals before this, but Vandy still projected 26 points today. Like they're gonna score. And with Hartman in, you figure more efficient offense from Wake should speed the game up, force Vandy to score even more. These guys should be getting peppered with targets, so I don't mind that at all. Now, Kurt, a game like this, how are you approaching it with again the assumed crazy ownership on Hartman, and maybe what do you think Hartman comes in at today on this slate?
Probably like around at least 30%, right, Bruce? And his comeback, he's 8K, should be like 9.5, honestly. First game back. I've not actually got a chance to look at ownership projections yet because I was late with my workout. So I'm just going to guess off the top of my head 30% at least. But what I'm going to do is rotate these Wake receivers because, I mean, one of these 3 main guys is going to really disappoint. So I really want to rotate it. I love the game stack idea. Mike Wright, Shepard, Hartman, and then pick Green, Perry, Moore, one or pick 2 of them. I'm really leaning Perry, but I like Bruce's thing on Green, especially on FanDuel. He's a lock. But like I said, one of these guys is going to disappoint, so I would be rotating them, especially if you're multi-entering.
Yeah, I can't blame that at all, and that does make sense. I think if you're building an optimizer, I mean, this might sound silly. I don't think you can win having more than one of these Wake receivers. I don't think you can win a gigantic tournament that way anyway. So I like that idea of splitting it, where you take Hartman with one receiver and only one receiver, and you just build that across different lineups. All right, so we'll move on to the next game, Texas and Bama. I'm looking at implied totals of 22.25 on Texas, 42.75 Bama. Bruce, I'll start with you for this one. How are you approaching it? It felt so tilting last week. I'll be honest that like in a blowout spot where it made a lot of sense for Gibbs to be the guy, they really made sure Bryce Young got his 5 touchdown passes,
Yeah.
which was frustrating. Because Gibbs had volume for sure. How are you approaching this game? Obviously, this game's unexpected to be a total blowout. So maybe there's some value in going back to Gibbs. People might not play him at this price. People may, but there's very few scenarios where starters don't play the entire game for Bama. I think they likely play this entire game. Even if they're up 4 touchdowns in the fourth, they're still likely in the game. So what's your thoughts here on Bama? And in your mind, is a guy like Bryce Young going to be very under-owned today because of all these cheaper price quarterbacks?
Yeah, he's going to be single digit owned, I think. So I'm going to make a GPP or two with him and some of his receivers. This Texas defense is unproven. Not sure what we're going to see here. Probably some fireworks from the Bama side. Hopefully Texas can keep it within 2 touchdowns. This is actually probably my third favorite game stack on the slate. I'm going to have a little bit of it. But yeah, I do love Gibbs. I averaged 10 yards a carry last week, even though he only got 9. So he should get to most of the work there. And then they do have a couple other backs that may get some work as well. But the Bama wide receivers, I think Holden is probably their best wide receiver. He's just really young and unproven. We could get low ownership on those guys. Jermaine Burton, the Georgia transfer as well. The hard part is picking between these Texas wide receivers, just because Quinn Ewers is really unproven as well. He looked okay last week in the second half. The game kind of got out of hand and he didn't play the fourth quarter. But he's kind of a gunslinger, so he could make some mistakes, but he could cut it loose deep to like Xavier Worthy or Jatavian Sanders, who's only 3K today, despite 6 targets and catching a touchdown. He seems to be his Quinn Ewers outlet when things are getting rough for him. So there's some good pieces there for cheap. So it's really easy to make a nice game stack. And then of course you got Bijan at running back. So just one of the best running backs in college football. It is a really tough matchup, but if anyone can do it, it's him.
Now, your take on Sanders, do you know a snap share that he's been seeing?
Yeah, it was a blowout. He was in the game 60% of the time. The transfer from Bama, Billingsley, has been suspended for 3 games. So they're kind of playing him out of necessity there. And he ran a route 92% of the time on the field, 3.7 yards per route run. So he checks all the boxes for me. If you're playing a value guy from that game, it probably be him. Also Casey Kane played a good amount of snaps as well. He's a walk-on wide receiver, but he doesn't look the part. And he played 43% of the snaps as well. So there's a couple of cheap guys.
I think that's what makes it tough though, right? With so much pricing to go around, like, do you really want to extend to a guy that's 3K, just fitting guys that aren't going to be as high on anyway, but definitely interesting. Kurt, for this game with Bama and Texas, anything you're looking to target here? I do think this game does see ownership in various ways. And as we mentioned, Bryce Young is seemingly going to see very low ownership of all these cheaper quarterbacks. How are you approaching this game in tournaments?
So with his rushing upside last week that we haven't really seen from him yet, I'm really interested in paying 10 too if he's going to get 100 rushing yards again, especially if UT can just keep it somewhat close. Then, we could see a really high score from Bama over their team total. So I do have interest in Young. I think in Hartman lineup, so I'm going to split it up a little bit and just pay up for Young there because I'm definitely going to have a 6K quarterback that I like in that range. There's too many of them. I like Gibbs as a bounce back. I'm not going to pair him with Young. I'm going to split him up, but I hope that's not going to be a popular kind of bounce back spot for Gibbs. I don't think anyone wants to do it because the Young just rushed more. I don't think they're going to want to go to Gibbs, but I'm going to go to him. I'm having a hard time picking any run back with UT besides Big John Robinson. So I'm not going to try to catch lightning in a bottle with one of the UT guys. I'm just going to run Robinson the run back in that one.
Cool. And then Mangone, last but not least, how are you approaching this game? A game that figures to be a top 3, top 4 game stack.
Yeah, I'm very torn on how to handle Bama. Let's at least kick off Texas. If you're going to play a Texas guy, play a Bama guy. Let's at least start there. I do think that Sanders for 3K is a pretty interesting punt option because, listen, he could he doesn't have to do a lot to get there, and you can easily get a 0 and you can still cash stuff. So I do think Bijan Robinson, if you play him though, definitely you're going to want a Bama guy in there. The question is which one? I mean, is it someone like Burton? Is it Kobe Prentice? Is it Holden? We like Holden here, but I don't know if we want to play him in DFS. So overall though, I think a lot of good options that you can go to. The guy that I'm not as excited about, I'm not as excited about Bryce Young. It's just quarterback. It's just, he's so expensive. There's so many other good options that I just would rather go cheaper. Nothing against him. I'm not talking badly about him or anything like that. I just don't see myself getting there. There's nothing I can do about it today. So you can't play everyone. And then I just don't know if I'm getting the Jahmyr Gibbs either, again, because of all those other running backs I mentioned. So that's kind of my overall takeaway. It's like, they're just priced up a bit. I could see them being on the winner. It would not surprise me. But if you are going to play Texas guys, you need a Bama run back. I think that's just a very important point to hammer home.
Yeah, I agree. It's a complicated situation because you mentioned the thing on Young with how you're staying away from him, but I think that mindset is going to be something a lot of people take where they don't play him this week because of that price. And I'll be honest, there's just so many discounts everywhere that I think everybody's going to go cheap at quarterback. And I do think that it's not going to sting you that bad to pay up for quarterback because it'll make your lineups completely different than everybody else's. I think a lot of people, we'll talk on the Pittsburgh game in a bit, but I think a lot of people are going to load up on just Hartman and Hooker and then just build from there, which makes sense at their price. But I do think this is a game where you do have leverage to be a little different, certainly in quite a few ways. All right, so the next game up, Miami, Southern Miss. Miami's got one of the higher team totals of the slate at 39.5, going up against USM here. As far as approach for this game, you got a bunch of cheap players here on Miami, and their team total is ridiculous. Mangone, I'll start with you for this game. Is this a sneaky spot to just target a bunch of Miami dudes? I mean, their implied total is one of the highest on the slates, and these guys are dirt cheap. So how are you approaching this game?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at some of the price tags, right, their most expensive receivers at 6'8", and then after that you get Keyshawn Smith at 5'1", so that's pretty good. Then you go over to the running backs, and Parrish, you get him at 6'3", Knighton's at 5'3". I know our girl Susie, she's in the chat always. She's a big Miami fan, so I'm sure if you got all the Miami Showdown questions, she can help you out with that probably better than I can because how much she knows the team. But overall, this isn't a game that I've gotten to that much, and you're bringing up good points, Uncle. Obviously, has a big total. So I don't know. I just don't see myself getting there as much. The real question is what do we do with Frank Gore Jr. in the old, son revenge spot against father's team? And he's been getting some quarterback work, right? So I don't know. I think he's kind of in play. Bruce, I guess I'll throw this question to you. If you had to pick between Gore Jr. and Parrish, which one would you go with? Because I kind of think that Gore Jr. usage is just going to go completely overlooked. And he could be a really sick play. Bruce, you're on mute.
Is that better? Better? Is that better? All right. Yeah. Sorry, dogs going nuts. I do like Gore. He's going to get all of the usage, but it is a tough matchup. His dad did play for Miami, so probably going to have a little bit extra in the tank today. So. He's a decent GPP play for me, but I'm not getting to him on a main team or anything like that. If you're stacking up the game, it kind of stays close. You can play him, but I just he's gonna see all of their carries. Gonna play a little bit of quarterback. He had 4 passes last week, so but mostly staying away from that.
And nothing else you like here, Bruce, right?
The wide receiver Restrepo looked solid last week. I thought he's definitely a good GPP play. Van Dyke as well, just one of the best pure passers in football. I think he was second in big time throw rate last season. So he's definitely in play. If the game blows out, he throws 6 touchdowns like he can. So, but yeah, other than that, nothing else.
And see, this is the shame of it. And I hate to beat a dead horse, but if DK gets their pricing right, because I'd argue he's priced right in this spot. If DK gets their pricing right, where Hooker's priced where he should be, Hartman's priced where he should be, this dude would have seen 15, 20% ownership, but because of all these other factors, this is going to be very low owned today. And you can definitely take advantage of it if you're going to be a little different. Especially, and again, in a game that they're going to score 5+ touchdowns today, seemingly. So you'd figure a few of them are going to come from his arm. Maybe they might come from his legs. But either way, Kurt, this game, anything you love in this one?
I like Gore as a one-off. I don't really want to try to stack this game because like Miami is running back by committee. And I had full intentions of having Van Dyke in my player pool. But after thinking about it, like he doesn't have the mobility, and I don't want to try to guess on the wide receiver there. So I think he has a good game, but I want to have a quarterback. I want to stack him unless they're like a guy who can run. So I'm not going to have any Van Dyke, but just Gore is a one-off for me here.
All right, cool. Let's move on to the next game. That would be Penn State, Ohio. Penn State could be wrong. No, second highest implied total to slate. 41.5 from them versus an inferior Ohio squad. Penn State just seemingly continues to let down in various ways, at least over the last few seasons. But woof, is this quite a spot? Now, the question is, Clifford should see the entire game, theoretically. Wow, if there was a smash spot for him, boy, would it be today. But again, we talk about the quarterbacks all around. And then, of course, the running back the running back situation for Penn State as well. This is an interesting game on many fronts. Kurt, is there a certain way you looking to approach this game? And Penn State dudes are going to see ownership today. So how are you approaching it knowing that?
Tinsley 12 targets and 5,800 is with that team total is hard to ignore. I can't lie. I'm gonna wait and see on Washington. I know it's a good team total, but he's too expensive. I was hoping his price came down. So Tinsley, and then that 3K wide receiver, is it Walton Bruce or what was his last name? 3K guy.
The one for Ohio. Yeah. Walton. They threw the ball a ton last week, which is surprising. I thought maybe they switched offensive coordinators or something, but that game was crazy with FIU.
Yeah, so I like him with one of the Penn State running backs probably get there, but I'm not doing it. I mean, I don't care if that beats me. I'm not taking that shit. Like I've been screwed by too many times. I don't care if the team total was 60. I'm not playing one of those dudes. I'm sorry. Not doing it.
Mangone, how are you looking at this game and what do you like on the Penn State side?
Yeah, I think Parker Washington's like the one guy I'm really looking at. Like, I guess I have a Parker Washington problem, but I think he's really talented. Clifford is someone I typically look at, but I don't think this is the week to do it. Just quarterback is too deep for me. So not super excited about this game. It's really just Parker Washington and moving on.
Okay. And Bruce, what about you? I know you got some contrarian in you. I know I'm trying to pump this Penn State side. Anything you'll be overweight on in relation to this game?
The decision for me is whether to play Tinsley or not. That's because he's gonna be owned. I think I may have a lineup or two, but yeah, he's the only tough decision for me. Parker Washington's going to be super low owned, I believe. If you're playing Prize Picks, the running back from Penn State is like, I think his total is like 30 yards or something crazy. I think Penn State is able to run the football today. In week one, they look like they were trying to establish it a little bit more. So I think they are able to run the ball, but yeah, they have so many running backs. It's impossible to play them in DFS. And Clifford, I like him, but like Mangone said, there's just too many quarterbacks today. So.
Okay, we'll move on to the next game. Notre Dame Marshall. Notre Dame implied total 35.75. Marshall, I can't imagine we're going to love anything from that side, but Bruce, we'll kick it right back to you for this one. On the Notre Dame end, again, another game, cheap quarterback. You got Tyree there, relatively cheap, but how much can you trust his volume or workload? Because it looks like they are using a multiple head effect there. What do you like in this game, if anything?
Yeah, I'm pretty much staying away from it. I think Notre Dame's going to run the football effectively. They have 3 running backs here, and then their quarterback runs the ball as well. So it's tough to play any of those guys. Michael Mayer, of course, is going to be really owned, and I'll have my fair share of him. Lorenzo Styles is a nice little piece for Notre Dame, kind of an explosive wide receiver. I think he can make a play or two today. But yeah, other than that, I'm staying away.
Okay. Kurt, on your end, anything you like in this game, or is this game also a pass for you?
Sir, I'm a Marshall alum. Are you freaking kidding me, dude? Go Herd. We're shipping this shit, baby.
Do you and Allie Mack have a friendly wager on this game today?
She went to Notre Dame?
No, oh, never mind. I was thinking Penn State. I'm wrong. Sorry. Oh,
we waxed Penn State. Come on.
I know. I've got the wrong games. I don't care about this game that much, though.
So
rankings. My bad.
I do kind of have a sneaky option, but it's only for guys who are playing 150. I really like the Ethan Payne. He's a little like poor man's Christian McCaffrey. He's better in pass pro, even though he's younger than Laburn. So I think if we get down, he can catch a lot of passes. And he looked really explosive last week. He's not going to be able to run against Notre Dame, but I'm playing him for the pass catching and stuff, especially late in the game. 3,600. I'm going to stack. I'm doing a little mini stack of this game with him, Notre Dame quarterback. I really think that guy can rush for like 100 yards against us with Mayer. So those three is a little mini stack in this game. It's very contrarian, good for a 150. I really like a Notre Dame quarterback. I think if they do beat us like they should, he's too cheap. And like I said, I think he rushes for more this week. So I think he's kind of sneaky. No one's going to play him.
That Marshall angle is interesting. I love it, Kurt. All right. Mangone, last but not least for this game, anything you like in this one?
No, I had the wrong teams in the game, Dunkel. So yeah, I don't care. I guess I like Mayer, Mike. He's a good option, obviously. But one thing to do, like I'm kind of messing with stuff now, is like, try and like make sure you don't play him with all the chalk, right? I mean, he's going to be a very high owned guy. So that's one thing I'm looking at right now. I'm looking at trying to separate him away from some other players. Like, I just don't know if one group I'm kind of thinking through right now, and I'm going to kind of run stuff and then see what the teams look like. But like, why not group away Chase Brown, Dell, and Mayer and only play like max of 3, right? Like, and then maybe I can just have all my teams have at least 2 of them. That way, that grouping basically is making sure I'm not ending up on too much chalk. And then I'm also still getting exposure to it. I'm basically saying all my teams got to have at least 2 of them because I think they're like really just way too good for their price. But I'm also making sure that I'm not getting like them all together. And then I just feel like I'm on the same path as everyone else. I'm going to run teams and then kind of look at them and see, hey, do I like these? Maybe I look at it and say, this was pretty crappy. And if they maybe think it sucks, just let me know in the chat and then I can actually not do it. But that's definitely something that I'm kind of going with right now.
Okay. We got the best game of the slate coming up here. And then we have a few mid games afterwards. But either way, Pitt and Tennessee. So this is a very, very interesting spot. And of course, Hooker is going to be ridiculously owned at this price. I'm sure people will pair him likely with Tillman because at least he's the most reliable. I mean, what do you guys think in this slate as a whole? Bruce, I'll start with you. Actually, Mangone, I'll start with you because you love this. I know you do. LOL. The Hooker-Tillman combo. What do you think they come in at ownership-wise?
Yeah, I mean, Tillman, I think, is not going to really get like a ton of ownership. So that's kind of something that you could look at. I mean, he's going to probably be like maybe in that, like, he could hit single digits at like 8 or 9, but I do think he's going to be a really good play. Just depends. I think Hooker is someone that I'm definitely going to look to get exposure to. It's one of those quarterbacks. I don't feel like I have to pair up with his receivers. I feel like I could play him by himself. So you don't have to force that run back if you don't want to. On top of that, there's some good Pitt receivers that you can look at. Obviously, Mumpfield is in play. Wayne for cheap, 6.2. I think that's perfectly fine. It's going to be very low owned. So if you want to go to him, don't mind that. I do think there's some interesting, things on what's his name? Anaconda, we call him, or that's what we gave him last week is the nickname. He disappointed a ton last week, but for his price tag, he's looking like he's going to be a good play. And I believe there's like an injury situation there, Bruce, that kind of changed it up. I thought I read. So I do think that's a really good spot for him. Maybe doing like an Anaconda with Hooker and Tillman. I think it's an interesting way to go for sure. And I think this game is going to shoot out a bit. I think Tennessee puts up a ton of points. And I kind of like Tennessee as a bet too at -5.5.
Yeah. So Bruce, Anaconda, what are you seeing his ownership at? Because this dude looks like he should see a lot of ownership today.
Yeah, it's interesting because there was news that Hammond, who just completely smashed last week, was in a boot after the game. So, if for some reason he misses, we could see a lot.
He's expected to, Bruce, by the way.
Oh, is he? Okay. I didn't see that yet.
He's doubtful.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
So,
what I thought. And I think that's pretty new news, right? So
Great.
like that's going to change some stuff for sure.
yeah, I read that yesterday, and I was hoping that he would miss. And if he misses, we could see a lot of him. The bad thing is that Vincent Davis might be back. I haven't seen any news on that. If Vincent Davis is back, he could work in as well. He played a lot last year, so could see that. I kind of think that Tennessee wins this game by 2 or 3 touchdowns. I hate this new Pitt offense, to be honest. They brought in the Boston College offensive coordinator, and it's a lot of running and passing to the tight ends and passing short. So yeah, I think Tennessee does well this game, and I do like Tillman. I do like Hooker. Jalen Hyatt possibly. He looked good last week, and if you're playing narrative street here, Bub Means on Pittsburgh actually is a Tennessee transfer. He went to Louisiana Tech before, so yeah, he's one of their deep threats also. So he's not a bad play if running something back, if it's not Wayne or Mumfield, who look good early on in the year also.
Love it. A lot of options there for sure. And Kurt, on your end, how do you approach? Obviously, you're going a little contrarian on that Marshall end, but a game like this that figures to be super chalky in many ways. How you approaching this game? You're muted, Kurt.
My bad. I'm really taking stands. Like I want to go a lot of Hooker, but I'm instead of like switching his receivers, I'm going all in on Tillman, Hooker. And for Pitt, instead of playing around with Wayne and Means, which I love narrative streets, so that might tempt me, but I'm not. I'm going Mumfield completely. So those are the 3 I'm really just going to hammer home. Obviously the 3 most obvious plays, but I feel like people will get cute, and I'm just going to stick with those 3, and that's how I'll kind of get different.
Love it. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to combine a few games because I think that we have a few mid games. So I'm going to combine the Wisconsin, Wazoo, Air Force, Colorado, and Iowa games together and get your guys' take on them, because we could talk on them each individually, but I just think there's going to be a lot of quick passes. Wisconsin, let's do this. Let's make it easier. Let's pair Wisconsin and the Air Force game. Mangone, I'll start with you. Obviously, the Wisconsin side, the running back Allen is. I mean, what are they doing with this? What are they doing with this price? Allen $7K, and then on the Air Force end, is there any running backs you might like, or anything being potentially contrarian in either of these 2 games? And again, I don't mean to mix things up by shuffling games around. I just feel like these games aren't going to be. There's not a lot to talk about in these games, but Brandon Allen is somebody that we will have to talk about, and maybe Roberts from Air Force. So these 2 games in particular, run heavy games for the big favorites. How are you approaching these games?
Yeah, no, these are definitely guys that we can talk about. I think overall, basically, like Allen is a really good play, but like I'm torn because I think he's a really good volume back. But I kind of think some of these other guys have like really big playability. And like, is this a game that you lean on Braylon Allen and you're just like pounding the rock all game long? Like, I just don't know if this is the game to do it, right? Like, I don't know if this is the game to just like unleash like the bell cow and just let him do it all. So I think I kind of prefer guys like a Chain a little bit more. I know last week he killed a bunch of us, but I don't know. I mean, I think it's a good bounce back spot for him. And we saw Anis Smith have a big game. Could be a zigzag spot. Now maybe jump on a Chain instead. So that's kind of one of the reasons I'm thinking about that. And then I think Roberts is in play. Not someone I'm like looking to slam onto my lineups. If I get some exposure, fine. If I get like 50%, I'm not looking to have that. I'll probably like put a max adjustment on it. But overall, I really do not think that I'm dying to play these guys. But if I get exposure to those 2 running backs, they're perfectly fine plays. But I think I prefer some other ones in that range with Allen instead.
Okay. Kurt, on your end, how are you approaching the running back situation on the Wisconsin and the Air Force end? And you likes to be contrarian. Is there anything contrarian you're doing on the Wazoo or Colorado side?
No, I'm actually not playing any of that game. But as far as Wisconsin goes, I love Allen. I want to be contrarian, but I will say this: even when Jonathan Taylor was at Wisconsin, we know how good Jonathan Taylor was. He had some of these games where he'd have like 190 yards and 0 touchdowns because every single one of them got poached. Now, obviously, that's like you're still getting 190 yards, so you're getting 19. You're still getting like 25 points, but with a lot of good running backs in the slate, I feel like you're going to need 30. And what if he only gets like 140 yards and every single touchdown's poached? Just know it's possible. But I think Allen's going to be a stud, even in the NFL. Love him. Just be wary. It's happened before.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because Wisconsin's done this for years. I mean, between the James White, the Melvin Gordon days, the Corey Clement days, like they love getting their running backs, especially their big ones, touches and scores. Braylon Allen obviously doesn't see all the goal line work, but man, like this is a game where he could easily play all 4 quarters, and it wouldn't. Like, what do you think? Bruce, this is a good way to segue to you. What do you think Allen's floor is today? Because I think his floor is like 20. Like, what unless he gets hurt, how does he have less than 20 today, between whether he gets you 100 yards in a TD, whether he gets you 80 yards in 2 or 3 TDs? Convince me that his floor is not less than 20.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing that is a little concerning is Ches Malusi being back, the Clemson transfer. He did work in the first quarter of their last game, so he is gonna play a little bit, and that's the only thing that's scary. If you're trying to make a decision between like him and A-Shane from Texas A&M, that's kind of the decision maker for me, is that A-Shane isn't really going to have another guy that's going to work in, while Braylon Allen's going to have Malusi there as well. But yeah, I think his floor is definitely 20. His upside is a little limited with Malusi back, but it's still, he's just one of the best backs in the game. He broke a 97-yard touchdown last week, and it was a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and Mangone, you kind of touched on these games already, right? I started with you, right? I think.
Yeah, you did.
I started with you, man. I'm just making sure. Yes, that's it. That's interesting, right? Because obviously we talk on his floor being high, but his ceiling, you're right, is limited. And this dude's been seeing reps with the first team a bunch this year, and now that he's healthy, you definitely could see a bit of a timeshare. But man, that wouldn't make as much sense. Like, Allen's been so good, but you're right. It wouldn't surprise, especially if they got a big lead early. If he's not the one that's getting the scores early, man, he might just barely hit that floor 20. And at his ownership, maybe it's not worth it. But I'll tell you, you'll be kicking yourself if this dude ends up with 200 yards and 3 scores today at 7K. And he could, if the volume's there, he definitely could. All right, so let's move on to a little more of an entertaining game. So A&M, well, a little bit, I guess. A&M and App State. A&M, another team with a high implied total. App State's going to be tough to love anybody. App State looked really good last week in a crazy shootout where nobody played really any of these dudes. This week, I don't really think anybody's going to go back to this well. Haynes King on the A&M side, big rush upside, obviously should be throwing into big pockets. We saw what UNC's QB did to this defense last week. Again, another dual threat kid. How are we approaching this game, Bruce, from a perspective of, we understand the leverage of the slate as a whole. Anybody you like here? Anybody you're going to be overweight on?
Yeah, this is a tough game for me. I just don't know how I see it going. I do like A-Shane, running back. Haynes King, I watched a lot of this game the other day. He threw some very questionable passes, but he does have the rushing upside. The UNC QB that you mentioned, he did go 12 for 76 on the ground last week. So there's going to be some spots to run. Anaya Smith should have a big game. Evan Stewart should see some ownership for A&M, the freshman 5-star wide receiver. And I think that's warranted. He played very well last week, had 9 targets. He's in that 5K range, so he should see some ownership. If running it back, I like Nate Noel a little bit. The Texas A&M rush defense was kind of poor last week. The quarterback for Sam Houston State kind of ran on them a little bit also. So I do like him. Someone like Deshaun Davis, the wide receiver for App State, got 7 targets and scored I think the tying touchdown late in that game last week. So those are a few of the guys I like. I just don't know how I see this game going. A&M's offensive line was really poor last week on the right side. They rotated a few guys in just because one guy wasn't doing the job, and the other guy was pretty bad as well. A-Shane was getting hit almost immediately on a few of his carries. So yeah, just A-Shane probably, and maybe a little sprinkle of Stewart and Smith.
Love it. We love options here, Bruce. I will say this, there's 291 of you watching and only 71 likes. Can someone make that make sense? I mean, unless like 220 of you are all held hostage watching this video with your hands Velcroed behind like a chair or wire tied behind a chair, like, okay, fine, it's acceptable. But I assume most of you are not in that state. So all you have to do is I'll give you a quick demo for those that don't know. All you have to do is just one of these. You just take the finger point. You can do it with your pinky too if you want. I mean, really depending how egregious you're trying to get it. You just boom, click, like. It's not hard. There's a lot of you watching, a lot of good content here overall. And I'm going to give out some bets as well at the end of the show. So yes, please like the video. There's too many of you watching to only have as many likes as we have. So yeah, don't be lazy. Get the fingers out of your ass and like the video. All right, Mangone, over to you for this game. A&M side, anything contrarian on the other side? What do you like here?
Yeah, I think A&M, obviously, I like a chain a little bit. Bruce, my thing, I know their line wasn't good last week. Weren't they like selling out for the run a bit too much last week? And I'm not saying that won't happen this week, but my personal opinion when I was watching the game, it just felt like they were just selling out and making sure that there's no chance they were. And then you were getting Anis Smith with just one-on-one coverage. And if he burns them and then it happens to hit that long shot, then there's a touchdown. So overall, I think it's definitely a good game to go to. I think I'm mainly keeping it to a chain though, and kind of moving on. I don't even see myself playing that much Smith today. I guess I'm just doing the zigzag theory and hoping it kind of goes my way. I do think Smith is a good play. Like if I get him when I kind of run my teams, which I'm kind of working through my stuff right now, I won't like take him out of my setup, but if I have like 50%, I'll just kind of, push that down a little bit because I think it's a little too much. And there's just a lot of really good wide receiver plays on this slate.
Okay, awesome. And Kurt, last but not least for this game, anything we like here?
I'm having a hard time. I really want to attack this A&M total, but I think I just might be with Mangone. Play the running back. He's a bell cow. It's very few and far between today in college. So I'll go that way. I came on Davis late. He's just too cheap, and they're going to be down. So give me that. But I'm not going to play the roulette with App State and the running back, especially against A&M. Haynes King's a little too expensive. So I'm really hoping this game doesn't bite me in the butt because I don't want to go too overweight on here.
All right, let's move on to arguably the ugliest game of the slate, Iowa State. But the reason why I wanted to individually talk on this game is because, man, these dudes are all super cheap. The Williams situation in Iowa, running back wise, do we think Gavin sees the bulk of the snaps? It is risky, but this is the type of game where obviously it plays low scoring, but like if you think a guy is going to get 20 to 25 carries and could land in the box at these prices, there's a decent shot these guys land in an optimal. Kurt, I'll start with you. Anything to approach in this game at all with the low total?
Pass. Williams is decent, but it's just too expensive. He was 6K, I would do it, but pass, just exit off.
Okay. Mangone, anything in this game or just an easy scratch off?
I believe you said the Iowa game, correct?
Yeah, Iowa State.
All right. Yeah. I mainly Bruce and then move on. I don't really like too much here in this game. We obviously got a couple good ones coming up here shortly.
Yeah, Bruce. Anything here worth playing?
I could see some ownership for Gavin Williams, just because he was a stud last year. But other than that, yeah, maybe some Xavier Hutchinson. This really tough matchup for him, but he can score well. So no matter what, other than that, it's a terrible game.
And we'll kick it right back to you for Texas Tech Houston. Implied totals here. One of the better implied totals of the slate in terms of how both teams can produce. This game compares to the Pitt Tennessee game, which is going to have a lot of people overweight on. This game maybe sees a backseat a bit, but once again, Toon's price, like, God, it's so frustrating. Like I said last week, how I was going to be overweight on him and Harris in the game with UTSA because it just made a lot of sense. You had a lot of guys. In most cases, a game like that was going to be super stacked, but because there were so many other options, people were going to let this game slide to the wayside a bit. And guys are only 20-25% owned. Dell was only 30% owned at a very fair price, at least on FanDuel anyway. But here we go again, right? These and somehow, for some reason, they made Toon even 1,500 less, which is just crazy. And Dell, I mean, what are they doing with this price? Bruce, can you explain to me why Dell is 6K on the dude is going to see 10 plus targets today. The dude is in a perfect game script. He should be like 8,500 in this spot. But again, here we go again with this DK pricing today. Arguably, they're going to be the highest owned receiver on the slate. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, he's not going to be owned enough. Since this is a big slate, you can be different by just playing more than the field. He is going to be the highest owned, but for good reason. I love this game. This is probably my favorite game stack, just because I love the Big 12 and I love this offense. Their offensive coordinator comes over from Western Kentucky, where he had Bailey Zappi last year. So it should be a lot of passing and two high-paced teams. Houston is 16th in pace. Texas Tech is 14th, and they're going to throw it 70% of the time. So these wide receivers in this game are just elite plays. I think Jaron Bradley should see a lot of the ownership for Tech. But it's not going to be enough. Loic Fungi at 6K. He's projected for single-digit ownership. I think he's their best wide receiver on their team, and he could see 10 targets. They played some FCS school, I think Murray State, last week, and they played like the first quarter or so, and he still scored 2 touchdowns on 5 targets. So I love him today. Miles Price could see single digit ownership. All those starting Texas Tech wide receivers could smash like we saw those Western Kentucky wide receivers smash last year. So and then Donovan Smith, the Tech quarterback, could go under owned as well. I think he could be near 20% or so, but I think that's still under owned for someone who could run the football as well as pass it. And the 2 Tech running backs, SaRodorick Thompson and Taj Brooks. I really like Taj Brooks at that price. He's going to see very little ownership, maybe less than 1%, and because he's 6,900, and there's other good running back plays in that range. But we could see a lot of scoring in this game. So I do like him as a sneaky running back play.
And real quick, you're high on Smith in this spot at this price. Obviously doesn't have as much rushing upside. And when you talk about, he's priced in that Hooker range, and he's likely going to be less owned because of Hartman and Hooker in the same price. Is Smith a guy that you maybe might be overweight on versus the field at that price?
Oh yeah. And in GPPs for sure. I like this game better than Tennessee Pitt. So I'm gonna be a little bit over on it. The only thing that's concerning is Houston does love to run the football. So if they are successful, they're not scoring every other play. It does get a little scary if they go on those 12 play drives with the running backs running the football and Tune running the football. So that's a little concerning. But I'm high on Dell today. I like him to score a couple touchdowns. So give me this Texas Tech offense.
And Tune at 6,500 just feels completely free. Like that's the problem, right? Because obviously you're playing him. That means you're not playing Hook. That means you're not playing at least Hooker or Hartman. But 6,500 is just so annoying. Anyway, Mangone, this game. What do we like? What don't we like?
Yeah, sorry. We are on the Texas Tech Houston game, correct?
Yep, you got it.
All right, we're doing good so far. I obviously think that Tune and Dell is a great combo. Like Dell a lot, gonna have a lot of exposure to him on my teams. I think this game overall is going to be one that stacking up is definitely going to be a profitable idea. Donovan Smith is a good option too at 7.7K. The question is, which guy do you pair him with? You compare him with Miles Price. You can pair him with, Jaron Bradley. 2 good options. That's kind of a group of setting that I have set up for today. So got those guys as options, and I'm loading up on this game. I do know Campbell's someone that got some work the other day, kind of came on late. So I think he's someone else to like kind of mix in there. If you want to do like a whole full game stack of it, that's someone that I'd throw in there as well. And I don't mind Golden for cheap as well. That's another guy I've thrown in there too. So overall, this is a good game stack. Like I want to have exposure to this. I want to make sure that I'm getting, a game stack or 2 of this game today. I think it's a good one.
Okay. And Kurt, a game that figures to be a little chalky. I'm going to be honest. I don't know how chalky though, because man, there's just so many options, so many places. How are you approaching this game?
I guess to get different, just make a full game stack. People probably do 2 or 3 pieces from here, go like 4 or 5. I mean, that's how you get different. UH is going to, and hey, it's tough. It's gross, but play the running back, stack it and play the running backs the way to get different. Thompson, he's been bad to a lot of people, but that guy's been good to me. I don't think he's that good, but I swear he'll fall in the end zone twice for me and then catch like 5 passes. So Thompson's the way to get different. One of the UH running backs, that's the way we can get different here. Stack it up a little bit and play a running back who no one wants to play the running backs. So that's how I think it'll be a good game. I think it'll be high scoring. So definitely get it in there, get some exposure to it.
Yeah, I mean, makes a ton of sense. To at least go overweight, right, on your stacks if you're going to do it. So at least you are making yourself different in some ways. Last but not least, so Illinois, Virginia. Just trying to confirm here. Yeah, so Illinois is -4. I know Virginia is getting a lot of love here. I will say this, at the price, pound for pound, my favorite play on this slate is Armstrong. And I know that on a normal slate, he would see a ton of ownership at this price. But again, there's just so many options. Armstrong at 6,300, I'd argue, has as much rushing upside as any quarterback on this slate. And he's $6,300. Now, the problem is the question becomes, well, do you just play him naked? Do you combine him with a guy like Wicks, which I think is going to come with some risk overall? I truly think you can just play Armstrong naked. You can combine him with guys, but man, they really spread the wealth over there in Virginia. They play up tempo. Now, of course, the biggest problem here is how slow Illinois plays, which of course is a bit of a problem, but it's just super easy to me. Like you play Armstrong on one end, you play Brown on the other. You get, a bit of love from both. They're super cheap for the upside. Bruce, I'll start this with you. Actually, no, we'll go right back to you, Kurt. This game being the quote unquote late game hammer, do you think people might load up on this game? Do you think this game might go to the wayside because it's one of the last games of the slate, or the last game of the slate? But man, this pricing, when you talk on a price per dollar, Armstrong to me, I don't know what his ownership's going to come in at, maybe 20-ish, sub 20, 25-ish. I'm debating locking him in at this price. What's your thoughts on this game?
I could definitely see sub 20. I love Armstrong here. Obviously, Chase Brown's going to be like 60 for 70% owned, right? Bruce has to be. So I think people will probably do like, I can see them doing one Virginia, whether it's Armstrong naked or like maybe one of the receivers and then doing Brown, but I don't think they want to full stack it. So I said it earlier in the chat on Tuesday, you could full stack the last 2 games. And I mean, you could definitely get there late and be a late hammer. So I'm treating UVA like Wake. I want to rotate the receivers. Davis is going to be the chalkier option. I kind of like paying up for Wicks. Billy Kemp is my last option there, but I do think he could bust one and be a lot lower owned, but that's a really deep 150 play. So rotate the receivers. You can play 2, but I prefer 1 because Armstrong has the dual threat ability. Then run it back with Chase Brown. And if you want to do a full game stack, Isaiah Williams is overpriced, but he's going to get double-digit targets.
Love it. And Bruce, we'll talk on this game a bit and also talk on leaving salary on the table today, right? So with all these options, I don't think a lot of people, I mean, obviously certain people will leave salary on the table. And when I leave salary on the table, I'm not talking leaving like 300-400. I'm talking like leaving 2,000 on the table. You can easily with the way these prices are today. And you'll be different because of it. And I don't think you're losing much upside. So this game in particular, which I'd argue has some of the cheapest options of the entire slate, and because everybody's going to load up on the Illinois back, it might actually create more ownership for the run back of Armstrong with a receiver. But I'm thinking like sub 20% ownership on Armstrong. What do you have him at?
Yeah, he's going to be lower owned than we think, just because it's the last game of the day and people always lock the early guys in. I think he could see single digits here, just because of there's so many quarterbacks, especially in that range too. You have right at 5,400, Tune there at 6,500. So he's going to be single digit owned in my mind. I actually love this game. The more I think about it, Illinois brought in UTSA's offensive coordinator, who was with Bielema at Arkansas, and he runs a more up-tempo offense than the previous guy they had. They actually, I think they've run 87 plays per game the first 2 games, which is which is crazy. I think that's fourth in pace. So out of all these teams, and that's 2-game sample. So, we can look at that. And then UTSA last year, I think they were 15th in pace. So we should see a faster pace from Illinois today. And Virginia has been running a lot of plays as well. So I do like this game. There is some value options. I do love Lavelle Davis at 3,500. He's probably my favorite value option on the slate at wide receiver. And then, Chase Brown is just going to smash this week. This Virginia rush defense has been terrible like the last 5 years, and we always attack them. Isaiah Williams is going to go under own just because of the price. He's averaging 12 targets per game. They're all short targets, but the former quarterback can make plays, scored a touchdown last week. So yeah, there's a lot of receiving options on the Virginia side. Wicks, 12 targets in the first game. Thompson as well. Just a bunch of good big play guys in this game.
Love it. And I will say this, Big T sneaks in with the Irish hello. It just shows you how much I'm not exactly focused on the Zoom itself. But yes, Big T,
Yes.
$500,000 richer. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy. I'll tell you this, it'll be nice to just kind of consistently rub this one in you, Tony. It's fantastic. Love the belt. What was it like last night?
I was just enjoying these winners getting picked. I was taking notes, just crawled out of the bed after a long night of rooting, listening to Bruce. There was like 4 people last night just stroking Bruce being the best college guy. I was like, well, what do you think? Of course, Bruce is the best college guy. No doubt in my mind. But yeah, last night was it was awesome. Good sweat. It went to the very end. Sometimes at these live finals, it doesn't go to the end, but man, we had to fade like 10 Dodger at bats to hit a home run that would have pushed Squirrel by us. So crazy sweat, fun though.
That's fantastic. And again, who better than Anthony Wayne to take it home? Now, in relation to this slate at all, I mean, have you dug in a crazy amount? Have you dug in much?
I just listened to the 10 minutes you guys talking, and it gave me all the winners. I'm going to game stack the last 2 games with Kurt. I'm going to play mini Taysom that can't throw the ball that Bruce always loves. And I'm going to fucking play the Illinois running back. That's all I need, right?
Love it. Recipes that simple. And lock in Armstrong.
That's mini Taysom.
Oh, I didn't even know
Yeah.
that I referred to him as. All right, Mangone, I haven't talked to you on this game yet. What are your thoughts on it? Obviously, the game figures to be relatively popular, but because it's the last one, might not be as popular as folks think, as Bruce hinted at. What's your take on me being way overweight on Armstrong today?
Yeah, I was hoping you'd miss Big T. I was going to give him like the big, a WWE type entrance, but you caught it, Dunkel. So let's talk about this game though. Obviously, like Armstrong, he's going to be a good play. Like I said, quarterback's loaded today, so definitely going to get some Armstrong exposure though. Think you can pair him up with Wicks. That's a great combination to put in there. And Chase Brown is obviously going to be just like one of those stone locks that I have on a lot of my teams. So that's overall kind of my takeaway on how I'm handling this game. I don't think I have to do the full on game stack, but I think like the small stack is not a bad way to go with Chase Brown, Armstrong, even just those 2 alone, you can do by itself if you really wanted to. And then if you have like one of those other like cheap running quarterbacks, you don't have to have that full on game stack. So there are ways to make the Armstrong thing work without doing the full game stack of Illinois and Virginia, if you'd like.
Love it. So I guess obviously that's the slate. And we have the UFC show coming up, right? Is that 5-10 minutes from now? UFC show on this channel. Is that correct? Could be wrong. Anyone? Bueller? All right.
So it's coming up next, UFC. Obviously there was a big card, and I'm sure Big T's getting ready to set up that stuff for the card tonight and sweat those games as well. But it's a big fight card because I think there was like one dude didn't weigh in properly. He was like overweight. And then Dana White was like, okay, this ain't going to fly. And then he said, we're making it 2 main events instead. So they're flying out.
The conspiracy theory was that it was all set up to do that.
Wouldn't be surprised if it was all set up.
But
Chase
yes,
Brown is projected for 30 fantasy points. My Lord, what was he going to be? 100% owned?
Should be, yeah.
I mean, we'll see.
Going Saber right now, and Bruce juiced him up so bad that they're giving me 100% no matter what I do. I'm like, God.
Why are you not trying to get
Follow
100%?
freaking Bruce, Kurt.
I mean, can I have
Put your
80%?
freaking cutoff shirt on and jam Bruce's plays.
100%.
Another site has him at 40 DK. So I
Lock him in.
I under projected. Yeah.
So two things. Obviously, for folks that are watching this for free that aren't a part of the team, Run Pure, RPS 15, that code's still live, right? Or is it NFL 15? NFL 15, right? This code's still live. Good. Get you 50% off all the memberships. And yeah, I mean, definitely head over. Obviously, we go through the plays here, but all the folks will have core plays up for the site for college football. Obviously, NFL, big day tomorrow, big slate of videos as well. I'll be back tomorrow. Obviously, Big T will be back tomorrow. A bunch of us will be back tomorrow talking NFL. But one thing I want to harp on before we go, Tony, what's your take on this Eliana Al Gore conspiracy with poor Grayson's photo? What the hell's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, it was a good day yesterday with the fantasy stuff, but Elena, man, she's living rent free in my head. We got the entire DFS community voting with me, and we still can't win. It's an embarrassment to the DFS. Either we're embarrassing or she's cheating. You decide which it is.
I feel like there's like someone on the back end that's like, okay, like how is Grace like this Eliana's got to win or something. I feel like we're getting
every time we get a lead, Elena gets like 700 straight votes.
Yeah,
this would never be permitted under a Trump presidency. I'm just saying.
I thought Kurt sent me a video yesterday. I thought Kurt was gonna just keep getting it done for Grayson, but he must have had to go to sleep.
Well, I think I woke up and that chick had like 4,000 votes on the page.
Yeah.
I don't even know what the hell's going on over
I
there.
woke up at like 4 a.m. to take a piss. I was like, I might as well give him 5 more votes.
But anyway, obviously, folks, thanks so much for hanging out with us. Obviously, a lot of juicy stuff. The slate, yes, will be a bit chalky. So if you're going to take down anything today, you got to find a few ways to be different. We talked on spots to not really fade on the chalk, and then talked spots to be different than the chalk. Definitely some high upside plays as well, separate from the chalk. But all in all, as always, folks, gamble responsibly, stay safe, and yes, Run Pure. Check the UFC show out next, and of course, all the NFL content at Run Pure Sports. But until then, we'll see you tomorrow.